Hello, welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. It is estimated that nearly 40 million Americans have already cast their ballots early ahead of tomorrow's highly anticipated midterms. To assess the implications and what tomorrow means for the direction of the country, we're happy to have the former White House Director of Trade and Manufacturing Policy under former President Trump, Dr. Peter Navarro. Dr. Peter Navarro, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
Steve, my brother, great to see you on this momentous eve. This is going to be the most consequential election we've had in decades. And elections have consequences. 2020 election certainly did. And I think one of the consequences is going to be what happens tomorrow.
Indeed, it's an exciting midterms that is upon us. First major election cycle since the unprecedented 2020 election. What are some of your predictions and thoughts about some of these key races throughout the country, specifically in some of the battleground states?
Let's take them kind of office by office and state by state. If you look at down ballot races that have momentous significance, it's going to be secretaries of state races in Arizona, where Mark Finchem, a Republican, is promising to restore election integrity, and Christina Caralla in Michigan. Nobody really cared about secretaries of state prior to 2020, but with the influx of George Soros, progressive radical money, seizing those seats and having the secretaries of state, Jocelyn Benson in Michigan, others in Pennsylvania, effectively help, let us say, move the election in ways which were mysterious. These races are important. Those races, Caralla and Finchem, are characterized by a lot of the races we're going to see, Steve, which is massive amounts of Democrat money trying to avoid a red tsunami of anger and distrust of the Democrats. If you look at the governor's races in the battlegrounds, clearly Kerry Lake in Arizona, Tudor Dixon in Michigan, Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania are the three I think everybody's watching the most. What strikes me about these battleground races is that I still am very concerned about election integrity issues. In Pennsylvania, for example, we're not going to know the results for days after that election, during which there's going to be all sorts of time for the notorious Philadelphia Democrat machine to do things that shouldn't be. Nevada's got a similar kind of thing going on. Nevada's very interesting. You got Adam Laxalt, who's running a strong campaign, Jim Marchant as well. But again, you've got Democrat machine politics, which are working at cross purposes along with a lot of Democrat money. My admonition to people watching who are concerned rightly about stolen elections, just you need to show up. And you need to vote. And by the way, if you got time, help do some poll watching as well, because these are going to be contested elections. Of course, the big races are for the House and Senate. I think that we're likely to see a Senate swing of about 53 to 47. It's going to be massive amounts of absentee ballots, some of them coming out of nowhere. And the people of Pennsylvania, I have a special bond with them because when I was in the White House, I spent a lot of time on the Philly shipyard, a lot of time with the tank plants in places like York. It's a blue-collar manufacturing, fracking state, in my judgment. There's no way it should ever be any shade of blue, yet somehow it is. And I think a lot of that is because of the dirty politics of the Democrats. So again, to the Pennsylvanians watching, show up, get out. The House, of course, is going to be the big enchilada. Again, this is going to be turnout. What's so interesting, Steve, about this particular race is that there's so many races that are now what's called toss-ups, contestable races, that nobody ever thought they were going to be. In New York alone, which is generally considered a deep blue state, there's something like close to a dozen congressional races that could go Republican, and alone turn the majority to the Republicans. I think that if you watch the kind of the mainstream left-wing media, the CNNs, the MSNBCs, the Bloombergs, you're seeing the spin being that this is a close race. They're showing polls that show everything pretty close. But I don't believe those polls reflect the reality, the boots on the ground reality. So I would predict at this point a blowout. My only caution is people got to get out there and vote Republican and use sheer turnout to overwhelm any cheating by the Democrats. And I'm watching all sorts of races across this country that are exciting and are going to bring MAGA Trump candidates in to have a voice in the people's house.
Now, during your time serving at the White House, you took China very seriously. Are you happy with what you've been hearing from some of these top candidates in the midterms here in how they will handle or approach the Chinese Communist Party?
I'm not. Look, my experience in D.C., I think it's fair to say I was the China hawk in the White House, along with President Trump after Steve Bannon left after 6 months. And if I had a dime for every politician, particularly Republicans, who tried to talk tough on China and never did anything, I have a lot of dimes. So what I'm concerned about here is that the Chinese Communist Party has seen weakness in Joe Biden, has clearly been exploiting Joe Biden. Taiwan is now very much in play. Communist China continues to commit what I called during the administration the 7 deadly sins. They steal our intellectual property. They have these state-owned enterprises that run rampant around. They manipulate their currency. They kill us with fentanyl. It's time, Steve. It's time that we take a strong stand and decouple from the Chinese Communist Party regime economically. And that's what I'd like to see. When we begin to do what Trump was in the process of doing with his tariffs, then I'll be convinced. But let's be clear. The Chinese Communist Party are part of this election theft for the Democrats. Their hands appear to be in a lot of places they should not be. And I think it's to the Epoch Times credit that the Epoch Times leads in the coverage of factually unmasking the Chinese Communist Party on a daily basis with respect to its infiltration in the American economy, American culture, American democracy, America's financial markets. And we'll be unfortunately talking about this issue for a very long time.
Now, one of the Democrats' campaign messages is that the election is consequential to maintain our democracy. What do you think they mean by that?
Well, what they mean is that unless you vote their way, it's bad for democracy. I mean, as a general proposition, what we need are fair elections where only legal votes count. We don't have the ground rules in place for it. I think one of the consequences, if there is a Republican landslide, will be to restore the printed ballot on game day. People will go back to the future where they vote. Only the very sick and infirm and senior citizens will have these absentee ballots. Everybody else, their civic duty is to show up on election day. We got to get rid of all this universal balloting. We've got to get rid of automatically register people to vote if they get a driver's license, even if they're an illegal alien. I mean, the kind of abuses that are going on, particularly in some of these blue states, is really beyond the pale. But I would say to you, I would talk now specifically to my brothers and sisters in Michigan and Pennsylvania. I know you. You are a blue-collar, manufacturing, hard-scrabble, populist, economic, nationalist set of states. And you've been overrun and overtaken by radical progressives who want to take control of your children and your schools and who are destroying your economies with lockdowns. And this is a chance to get out and vote. If you're a Democrat, blue-collar Democrat for all your life, it's time to come home to the Trump Republican Party.
And on that note, does the former president, your former boss, announce another bid at the White House after the elections, and will you support him if he does?
My forecast, Steve, was for a Christmas present for the American people, and I think certainly by Christmas Day, he will announce, and he will have my strongest support.
Dr. Peter Navarro, really appreciate you joining us.
Steve, always pleasure.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.